We've been talking about the Giants, their record, who gets the credit, why openers are, quote-unquote, not allowed to work in the playoffs. Can't do that. Check this out. So Gabe Kapler was asked. The basis of this conversation was Tristan Beck. He goes out there, throws 4 innings, shutout innings in yesterday's 1-0 win over the Diamondbacks. And a reporter sort of says, hey, so, like, if he can do that, well, I don't know. Like, how far off are we from maybe Tristan's one of your starters? Listen to the response from Gabe.
I think there is a case, but is there a case to let a guy kick ass and keep kicking ass in the role that they're in because it's good for them?
Oh, yes. Flex.
Point, counterpoint.
Flex for me, hand tat. Do it. Do it.
Do it. Do it.
Once again, is there a case for Tristan Beck to be a starter? Listen to the way that Gabe responds.
I think there is a case, but is there a case to let a guy kick ass and keep kicking ass in the role that they're in because it's good for them?
There is a case for us to switch his role. There is also a case for us to keep kicking ass and being awesome.
With him doing what he's doing, which is...
Fair point?
It's a very fair point.
Thank you.
In other words, yes, Tristan Beck has earned the right to start, but why would I start him when he is so good in innings 2 through 5? So don't rock the boat if you don't want the boat to be rocking. Why would you bother mixing it up? And I think Sean Manaea is a great example. Could he start? Of course. He's been a starter his whole career. This year as a starter, he was not very good. And since you put him in such innings as 2 through 9, he's been a much better pitcher. So does Sean Manaea have the right to start? Has he earned being a starter throughout his career? Absolutely. But what is working for this team is using openers. Walker, Alexander, Brebbia, and Jacob Junis have been your 4 openers this year. And it's gone pretty well, to the tune of 15-5.
Yep. You remember who won the World Series last year?
Nah, I don't, Mark.
You don't?
It was Houston.
Okay. It was Houston. And who are their starting pitchers?
Oh, gee, I didn't know we were going to do quiz show today. I would have prepared.
Oh.
And Verlander? Was that the pre? Oh God, I got to look it up now and be embarrassed.
Well, hang on.
I'm gonna miss this.
I'm using things that are being chatted on the YouTube channel, powered by First NorCal Credit Union.
Look at you.
I'm using things that are being said. That it has been proven that starting pitchers win you championships. Is that true? In the modern era.
No, not really.
I mean, I remember that Mad Bum won one for the Giants 9 years ago. By the way, he came out of the pen. Yeah. Isn't that funny? The Giants' most famous victory ever, in theory, started with an opener.
Yeah.
They didn't mean to do it that way, but they did. I remember it. It was opener, and then bulk innings guy. Here comes bulk innings guy. His name is Madison Bumgarner, and you get a ring. Now, I know that was Game 7, and so that's different. I'm not trying to make that point. But I will make the point that this has almost an overlap with the running back conversation that we often have. Well, running backs, great running back, you got to pay them. They matter. You can't win without them. Really? Okay. Tell me all the Super Bowl championships that are attached to all of the high-priced great running backs that you draft early in your fantasy draft. I mean, who was the Chiefs' running back last year?
Yeah.
Who was the Eagles' running back last year? And don't yell Miles Sanders, because it was Miles and it was Boston Scott and it was Kenneth Gainwell, best running back name ever. And that's been way more often than not the trend with winning a Super Bowl championship. So I get it. I'm not saying, like, I don't want a lockdown starter.
Yeah.
If the Giants get to the playoffs, Logie gets game 1. Yes. But do we...
Cobby gets game 2.
Do we have this rule, but you're not allowed to Ryan Walker this thing, especially when you're winning at a 75% clip?
You can, but I'm looking at the Astros now, and I was right about Verlander. He started twice. Fromber, I got a no-hitter recently. Valdez started twice.
Yep.
Christian Javier started, and he went 6 innings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not an opener. And Lance McCullers Jr., I think, he probably is. He's a starter light because he's a starter, but he got the quick hook.
I'm not suggesting they used openers. I'm suggesting the Astros weren't littered with number 1 starters.
They have one of the best pitchers of his era.
Yeah.
And a guy who has got no-hitter stuff.
Right.
And they pitched 4 of the 6.
Okay, but...
So that's kind of where...
And then they let Verlander go. So the Astros, who are, again, good this year, 62-48, their starters are...
Yeah.
Texas Rangers this year, 63-46. Max Scherzer has started for them 1 time. Jacob deGrom's hurt. Go ahead. Who are their other starters? Orioles are great, 67-42. Their starters.
Yeah, they just picked up Flaherty, and they let him go 7 innings, and he got a win.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're allowed to do that.
Right. If you have a good starter, you're going to do that. And the Giants would love to have a rotation of 4 pitchers who they could start and rely upon, but they don't. So out of necessity, they use the opener strategy. And because they're using the opener strategy, they found a way to make it work because Walker's 7-0, Alexander's 3-1 as an opener, and Brebbia and Junis combined thus would be 5-4. I haven't gone through the full breakdown of their numbers, but we talk about how it's working. It doesn't necessarily mean that these openers are going out there and dominating in that inning. So part of the record is misleading because it doesn't necessarily mean that Walker goes out there and puts up a 0 every single time he pitches.
By the way, you know how the old adage was, can they pitch 200 innings for you? And we're well past the halfway point of the season, right?
Yeah.
So in theory, a really good, effective starter who's been healthy.
140 would be the pace, I think, right now.
All right, so do you know how many Dodgers pitchers have pitched 100 innings this year?
100 innings?
Just 100.
Man, probably maybe 2. I know they've had a lot of injuries, so they've done a lot of shuffling.
None. They have absolutely none. And if they got to a playoff series, which I'm sure that they will, sure, they've got Clayton Kershaw. They've got Julio Urias. You can get excited if you want about Lance Lynn being acquired. There is Tony Gonsolin, who traditionally starts but does not go as deep into ball games. Other people who have started a lot of games for the Dodgers this year, there's somebody named Michael Grove. There's a human named Bobby Miller. It's not what teams are doing. The Giants are pushing it a little further out of need, not out of want. They've been forced into this. But let's say even that out of luck, they stumbled into something that's working. I would argue the 49ers did that last year. Should we not start Brock Purdy? Because you stumbled into something that works that you didn't think would?
Right.
Or should the 49ers start Brock Purdy? Because they stumbled into something that works, so go ahead and stick with it. I guess that's my only thing here. For me, it's not like, okay, I need a dog, right? Like I need to sit down and have that dominant. Sure, that's great. But I don't sit down on Ryan Walker and Scott Alexander nights and be like, well, this is just a bore. Sit down to watch a game and see if the Giants will win it.
Yeah.
And when they've been doing that, they win it almost every time.
15-5.
Sweet.
And it's, I think,
sweet.
The winning is, I think, less about the opener and it's more about the fact that you have pitchers who can get outs. I'm looking at some of the numbers right now of the openers, and we all talk about Ryan Walker, 7-0 when he starts a game. His ERA as an opener is 3.0, and his whip is 1.5.
What's his nene?
It's not great.
Okay.
It's not great. He's pitched 12 innings as an opener in 7 starts. He's given up 4 runs and 18 hits and walks combined. He's been fine. 3.0 ERA.
Well, when
solid. 7-0. Just let me finish the comparison.
Yep.
Because John Brebbia, he opened 8 times before he got hurt. He pitched 9 innings. He gave up 1 run.
1 run.
And they're 5-3 in those games.
Yeah.
So it's not that a dominant opener portends you're going to win the game. It's, I think, a bigger question of, having pitchers who can get outs at all different times of the game.
I will also say, though, that when you're an opener, your stats, like for only when you're an opener, it can get a little skewed. If you've only done it 7 times and you have one game where you give up 3 runs, 3-run homer in the first inning, well, now your ERA is 3, and all the other times you threw scoreless.
But the point of that is, I mean, they still win those games.
Right, but how many of the 7 games that Ryan pitched did he put up a 0?
I think 5 of them, because I think he gave up 2
7?
and 1, and he gave up 1 run.
Okay.
Or maybe 4 of them, because I think he gave up 2 runs once and then 1 run twice.
Okay. Yeah.
So of the other 4, he put up a 0.
I look at it more at not just what he's done as an opener. I look at who he is as a pitcher, and that he has been largely very effective this year. And so if you can feature him, and as the Giants would put it, feature their bullpen. In other words, start a game where I can tell Taylor Rogers now, dude, you pitching today. Not like we'll see if it gets to that. You're pitching today.
Yeah.
You're probably pitching the 7th. Go to his brother. You're probably pitching the 8th. You know, if you have a lead, if you can do all that and feature these guys who've all been really good, okay, fine. Like, do that. And I know the concern of like, oh, you're going to wear them out. Maybe, but they're pitching 1 inning, which is what you call on them to do at least half the nights of the year anyway.
Right.
So I think they can manage it. I'm not saying go all in on it. Farhan even said the other day, this is not a strategy we're trying to champion. We're simply saying that so far we're pretty comfortable when we do this, and we're doing it really well. And I feel like we have all kind of dismissed the idea that this could be something that they use all the way to the end. It's on the table.
Well, they have to use it all the way to the end because they have no other choice. Now, you can Kyle Harrison me all you want until I see him in the bigs and see what they're willing to let him do. I'm not convinced that he can be any more than a 4-inning guy at the most. And I still have to see him in the bigs to even believe that he can be that, let alone be that in October.
That's
so
fair. That's
if
fair.
you look at everything else that you have, you've got Cobb and Webb and nothing else in terms of you're going to start this game. We believe in you to go out there and go 5 or 6. Like when Logan Webb pitches, you're thinking, can you get us into the 7th?
Sure.
Because he's got that sort of stuff. He's got the control. He pitches to contact, a lot of ground balls. He's built to last in a game.
The only way I can respond to that is you're right now. However, could there be a handful of different things and any one of them develops by October? Could it be a Harrison? Could Stripling finally get some consistency and end up in that role? Could a Manaea, could a Wood start a game?
Coulda, woulda.
Coulda, woulda. Could Tristan Beck end up starting? Sure. Could Ryan Walker get stretched out and do 4 innings? I mean, there's a bunch of different maybes out there, and you got to play the next 2 months and see if any of those come to fruition. Matt in San Jose next up on Willard and Dibs. Hey, Matt, what you doing?
I'm at work, man. I just wanted to touch up on a couple things. First, that quick aside that you guys made at the beginning of the inning about Steve Pappan. That was my high school football coach at Gunderson High School, and now he's over at Santa Teresa. He is a brilliant guy. He's a great dude, great football coach. Really happy for him that he's calling the championship game.
Thank you, Matt, for the Pap shout out. I've known him for probably 15 years and truly one of the good dudes. Taught me a lot about the indoor war.
Yeah, no, for sure. Without him, I wouldn't have played college football. So, yeah, big shout out to him. But to your question about who gets credit, Andrew Bailey gets credit. I mean, he's been great with this pitching staff. One thing you can mention about the Giants every year is that they're going to pitch. And whether it's starters, openers, bullpen, they're going to pitch. And they pitched well enough to win 107. They pitched well enough with significantly worse injuries and hitting last season to go 500. And here we are again this year looking at this team like this. So if the measurement of winning doesn't qualify Gabe Kapler and Farhan, then what does?
I think it's real fair. Like, I look at this
Matt.
right now. Matt, thanks. If I always don't let if the season ended today. If the season, though, ended today, or just spotlight right now.
Be a work stoppage.
Who's leading the race for Manager of the Year in the National League?
That's a good question.
I know we don't know any of the names of the managers anymore.
Well, Snitker, former winner in Atlanta, and it's always difficult to say because does Atlanta have all that talent? Do they have a lot more talent than the Giants?
Half their team made the All-Star team.
Right, because they're good players.
Right.
And are they good players because the manager's putting them in good position? It's always interesting for me in terms of coach of the year, manager of the year, because are these guys on Atlanta really good because they're really good players? Yes. Then the manager gets no credit. And does Gabe Kapler get credit because we think that his players aren't very good? The players are only as good as they are as players. And so how much credit does the manager actually get?
Well, here's where it is interesting. And we're presented by Fremont Bank, full-service banking, no compromises. I would agree with you. What you're sort of insinuating is maybe we're underselling the players. But the Giants are winning baseball games right now with some of the worst offensive metrics in the entire sport.
But they've got the best bullpen in the National League, so
which would be
that's
an argument.
Andrew Bailey.
Would be an argument to continue using openers because openers feature the bullpen, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.